Welcome into the show here. Can't nobody hold us down, no matter how many times these different social media outlets try to ban free speech and truth, but we are still here. Perseverance is the factor that sets apart success from failure. And so we won't quit. We're not going to back down. And can't nobody hold us down. Welcome into the Ike Wingate Show. Thank you for joining us, Ike Nation, all over the globe and on multiple platforms currently. Today was a big day, such a big day that the truth we started revealing on TikTok got us banned earlier, and it was straight out of the statements that were made from Congress, if you can believe that. So the House Oversight Committee announced this morning that they are revealing additional details as it relates to the Biden crime family. And as you know, that's what I call them now, because that's precisely what we're witnessing as far as multiple accusations and a trove of evidence that indicates such. The House Oversight Committee announced today that they have established a network of over 20 different companies formed by the Bidens and their associates. Most of the companies were LLCs and formed when Joe Biden was vice president. Based on the financial records they've obtained via different bank subpoenas, they are now saying that they can trace at least $10 million in total from foreign nationals and the related companies going to the Biden family. The big question: what exactly do the Bidens offer from a business standpoint? They don't make trinkets or, sell hot dogs or have some kind of long family business history. No, the family business is politics. And so why are they being paid millions of dollars with companies that have no specific function except what appears to be a shell company to hide and shield direct payments from one entity to another? People say, what does this have to do with Joe Biden? Well, it's getting more and more clear that Joe Biden was potentially involved in these transactions. Joe Biden in October of 2020 said Hunter never made any money from China. That's been proven a lie. And now what we're seeing is a lot of these things happened when Joe Biden was vice president. And what the Oversight Committee said today was that Joe Biden was specifically working on policy with these companies related to the wires while he was a VP, right? He had his own special projects, and those just happened to be the same places that money came from. According to the House Oversight Committee, the Bidens took steps to hide, confuse, and conceal payments that they received from foreign nationals. One example is setting up a shell company, listing one entity as the sole member, and then removing that sole member a week later, replacing it with a different sole member, funneling money to one shell company that then funnels it to another shell company. And they've even put together graphs to indicate the tangle. I mean, it looks like a pyramid scheme, basically, or an org chart from some company, for crying out loud. And basically, they show the money coming from China, going to Chairman Yi, who was part of the government, I believe, who then pushed money into different entities, a State Energy HK Limited company. They pushed money directly to Robinson Walker, which was an LLC with one of Hunter's business associates, Rob Walker, who pushed the money to Hallie Biden, Hunter Biden's brother's wife. His brother passed away, and then he dated her. So I don't know why this Robinson Walker would have pushed money directly to her, but also to James Biden Sr., to Hunter Biden, and multiple companies. We're talking 20 different shell companies that money funneled to. And it doesn't make any sense as to why. We also know that Hunter received large gifts, including a large diamond as well. And so, in addition to the China money ties, now there's also money ties to Romania. The Biden family and associates in Romania reveal an influence peddling scheme, according to the House Oversight Committee, from 2015 to 2017. And we know, based on, records of different meetings, that back in 2014, Biden visited Romania. And in September of 2015, the Romanian president visited the White House. Oddly enough, these payments started from a Romanian national just 5 weeks later. And by the way, this Romanian national was under investigation at the time and has since been convicted of corruption. Another shady person that the Bidens do business with. So while VP Biden was lecturing Romania on anti-corruption policies, he served as a walking billboard for his son and family to collect money. Hunter and his associates capitalized on a lucrative financial relationship with a Romanian national who was later convicted of corruption, as I said. The Bidens received over $1 million for the Romania deal, with 16 of the 17 payments made during the Biden VP term. And after Biden left, the payments dried up. Right? As soon as he's not, why didn't those payments continue after Biden left office? Which, that's what everyone said is, this kind of stuff, happens when politicians leave office. Then they start making money off of other deals, books or a Netflix special or speaking engagements. But no, this worked in reverse. These payments stopped once Biden was no longer vice president. Now, according to the House Oversight Committee, their investigation is entering a new phase. They are talking about additional subpoenas for banks for specific targeted information, and they are providing one more opportunity for certain Biden associates to cooperate willingly with the investigation. Will we see people finally turn on Hunter and Joe Biden? We know Tony Bobulinski already has. What about Rob Walker? Is he going to go down with the ship or not? Additionally, James Comer says he's releasing publicly the second bank records memo to the American people so they can see for themselves the activities that the Biden family has engaged in, despite the president's statements to the contrary. So they've released a large report here, and this new bank memorandum is indicative of influence peddling and financial deception, warranting further investigation and legislative solutions. The bank records and financial transactions are discussed in detail in sections E through G. So let's get down to those sections. Okay. So these are the different transactions dating all the way back to 1998, but really picking up in 2008 on. And these entities and their respective formation date. Right? Okay, so this is a formation date. These are actual wires. So you see 2 of the 20 formed prior to 2008. But most of them formed, 16, I believe, were formed during the Obama administration. So there's a lot of information here. $10 million. And one of the things that they uncovered that was really an indication that something wasn't right was that they always saw these wires come in, and a third of them would be kept by Rob Walker, a third would go to the Bidens, and a third would go to another entity, which set off some red flags. Ultimately, the House Oversight Committee says they believe that the Biden family and their associates courted business in countries that correlated directly with Joe Biden's work as vice president. They're saying this is not normal, this is not ethical, and that's why they're working toward legislative solutions. Byron Daniels from the state of Florida, who has a background in banking, and he says the only reason that you see this kind of activity with shell companies and the amount of wires that you're seeing is either A, you're trying to hide from the IRS, B, you're trying to hide from credit agencies, or C, you're trying to hide something from the public. And this may be all three of those. There were over 170 suspicious reports that got triggered based on the activity with these 20 shell companies. Guess who investigated these suspicious reports? The Treasury Department during the Obama administration. So while Biden was part of the White House as VP, these alarms were getting thrown off of these transactions to the Treasury Department. Somebody looked into it, but it never went anywhere. 170 suspicious reports based on these transactions. It's starting to sink in that there's not a logical explanation for doing business this way if you are trying to operate from an ethical standpoint. There is no explanation that justifies doing business this way. Why not just do business straight up? Hey, Hunter Biden got paid for, consulting on this specific subject because he's an expert in energy. So he got paid directly. Wrong. They funnel it over here, then over here, then over here, then over here. And the document, the graphic produced by the House Oversight Committee indicates such. Not only did money go to Hallie Biden, Hunter Biden, James Biden, the uncle, there was also payments to Biden grandchildren. Take a listen.
Joe Biden's brother, Joe Biden's brother's wife, Hunter Biden's girlfriend or Beau Biden's widow, however you wanted to write that, Hunter Biden's ex-wife, Hunter Biden's current wife, and 3 children of the president's son and the president's brother. So we're talking about a grandchild. That's odd. Most people that work hard every day's grandchild doesn't get a wire from a foreign national or anything like that. So that'll conclude our question and answer.
Okay, so we've got wires going to grandchildren. Again, this is an elusive measure taken to shield and hide transactions. You divide it up enough, then it won't seem like something nefarious is going on. Furthermore, as we told you yesterday, Ron Johnson with the House Oversight Committee, the congressman from Wisconsin, went on Fox News and made a claim regarding Joe Biden specifically paying tens of thousands of dollars on sex-trafficked prostitutes for his son. Take a listen.
One thing that we don't talk enough about, I know President Biden's just so proud of his son, but we have the evidence that Hunter Biden paid tens of thousands of dollars for prostitutes that were sex trafficked through an international sex trafficking ring.
Oh.
Yes, ick. And President Biden, during about a 4 or 5 month period, offered to pay for about $100,000 of Hunter Biden's bills when he was spending tens of thousands of dollars on these women who are sex trafficked. Now,
Doing business with a sex trafficking ring, that's more than ethically offensive.
it is grotesque, but the media doesn't concentrate on it. We had that in our report. We had the financial transactions proving it. James Comer does the same thing, but again, it is so icky, it's so reprehensible.
It is.
People don't want to talk about it, but it's just galling to hear the president talk about how proud he is of Hunter, and he enables this. He enables it by propping up his son, both in terms of those types of words as well as financially. It's really pretty sick.
You know the irony, too, in what you've just shared? So the president's son, just in the last few days, wanted to fight his child support because the family doesn't want to recognize that child as legitimate. The irony would be is what if that child, you said prostitutes paid for by Hunter Biden, that going through a sex trafficking ring. So how does the family not know about that if they're denying a baby that potentially came from that very source? I know we don't know what we don't know, but that was quite the bombshell you just dropped. And you're right, people aren't reading deep enough, and when they do, they don't report it. We will too. We will definitely do that. It is ick factor 10, as you put it, very icky, but those are the facts.
Ick, he said. Yeah, so this is not something you throw around lightly. So here you have Ron Johnson saying this, and that Joe Biden specifically funded sex-trafficked prostitutes. I also find the irony kind of interesting because today, as the president was talking about the debt ceiling and the discussions there, he said something to the effect of, "We're not a deadbeat nation. We pay our bills." Unlike your son, I thought the contrast was pretty stark. The president is laying out the fact that deadbeats don't pay their own bills. Their daddies do, basically. And that's exactly what Joe Biden did for years. We've seen it in the text messages, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to his very much adult son, who was more than capable of taking care of himself, but he was buying prostitutes, sex-trafficked prostitutes, and illegal drugs. And Joe Biden was funding it. But he's proud of his son. He's proud of his son. And the hits keep on coming, my friends, because just a few minutes ago, the story came out that the Biden campaign coordinated with an ex-CIA official to shop the Hunter Biden letter. We've told you all along. We showed you an email. In fact, you can look on my social media accounts and find the specific email from John Brennan trying to drum up support, right? But now we're getting further information about that letter that they used to dismiss the laptop from hell during the 2020 presidential debate. Now, the Biden campaign is alleged to have coordinated with a former CIA official to give the discredited Hunter Biden letter to hand-picked media outlets. According to a report from the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees, according to the report, former CIA senior advisor Nick Shapiro apprised Andrew Bates, a Biden campaign operative who now works at the White House, of his efforts to give reporters a letter signed by the 51 former intelligence officials that falsely suggested that Hunter Biden's laptop was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. Of course, the New York Post had published the story about Biden's laptop a few days earlier, and it was censored by Twitter. It says, quote, "This is what I gave them," Shapiro wrote to Bates in an October 19th email in 2020, summarizing his outreach to journalists. So not only did they work with the intelligence community to drum up this letter that was never actually vetted, did not have the boilerplate language, did not have a disclaimer. Some of those that signed this letter say that they were misled, that it was going to be vetted. They didn't do any of the normal protocols for something that uses the CIA. And not only did they do that, they actually coordinated pushing it out, based on this allegation, pushing it out to media outlets. He says he shares it with reporters from the Washington Post, Associated Press, and Politico. Yeah. All left-wing media. Republicans say the emails show the Biden campaign took active measures to discredit the Hunter Biden laptop by coordinating with former intelligence officials to provide the Hunter Biden laptop letter to reporters. Why would they be doing that? This is our intelligence community and the greater government in a collusion scheme to discredit the truth. This was election interference, plain and simple. They did not want the American people to know the depths at which Joe Biden is closely tied to crime and corruption. And we also know that, at the very least, if you could say that none of this ties back to Joe Biden, the fact that he is so closely communicating and in contact, both physically and otherwise, with his son, he's around him, this kind of person should never have unfettered access to the president. But yet we see that they are together a lot. The letter comes as House Republicans are dialing up oversight on both the Biden family and misuse of government agencies. The House Oversight Committee today held a hearing to discuss the Biden family's foreign business dealings and last week subpoenaed FBI Director Chris Wray related to a whistleblower's claim that President Joe Biden had illegal dealings with a foreign national while serving as vice president. And the House Weaponization Subcommittee is probing possible corruption within agencies like the FBI and CIA. Please do so. Let's get the people that don't have the best interest of freedom and our Constitution in mind. Get rid of them. Former CIA Deputy Director Michael Morrell testified that he organized the letter after a conversation on October 17th with Biden advisor and current Secretary of State Tony Blinken, or Antony Blinken. Blinken said he did not ask Morrell to write the letter, though, but the former spy master, Mike Morrell, said the conversation with Blinken triggered him to write the letter. Triggered him in order to give Biden a, quote, talking point, which is what we saw in the email from John Brennan, a talking point specifically to use in the debate with former President Donald Trump in just 2 days from that email. And the ploy worked. Biden cited the letter in the debate, completely dismissing the allegation. The story was censored from getting out there, and that was the end of it. Or so they thought. Morrell recruited former CIA officer Mark Paulos to draft the letter, and Shapiro then to pitch it to journalists using the intelligence community. They solicited signatures from a network of former intelligence officials and blah, blah, blah. And so the corruption goes on. Now, we just found out just a few minutes ago that the FBI is now refusing to give Congress this whistleblower file into the investigation of Joe Biden when he was vice president for basically selling policy decisions, influence peddling over policy decisions with a foreign entity. That was the investigation. Congress is asked for the information on the investigation, and the FBI, by the way, Congress has not only asked, they've subpoenaed them and gave them a deadline of noon today, which they have basically said no. So now we are reading, and I've not vetted or gone over this story at all because it just popped up. The FBI has refused to give Congress an informant file alleging that President Biden took bribes while he was vice president. This is from the New York Post. The New York Post has learned, which sets up a possible showdown over access to the information. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer issued a legally binding subpoena last week requiring the FBI to turn the file over by noon today, as I told you. Information from confidential human sources is unverified and by definition incomplete, wrote FBI Acting Assistant Director for Congressional Affairs Christopher Dunham, who also argued that informant reports must also be kept private to protect sources. As is clear, he says, from the name itself, confidentiality is definitional to the FBI's Confidential Human Source Program. Confidential human sources often provide information to the FBI at great risk to themselves and their loved ones. The information they provide also can create significant risks to others who may be referenced in their reporting. That's the end of the quote there. So now they're saying no, they're not going to give it to him. The FBI did not respond to the Post's request for comment. And of course, Senator Chuck Grassley is the one who broke the news. He said, "They didn't give us the unclassified report. They sent us a 5 or 6 page letter that I haven't studied thoroughly yet. They didn't dispute that it exists, that the document exists, or that it's unclassified. Why they haven't given it to us, I don't know." I hope they continue to stay on this because there's corruption at the highest level of our government, and there is a paper trail indicating such, and they must continue to pursue it. There's also now a senior intelligence community official, and the Hunter Biden statement report is what it's called. The Committee on the Judiciary Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government and Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, as part of the U.S. House of Representatives, has put out this Hunter Biden statement, how senior intelligence community officials and the Biden campaign worked to mislead American voters. So they've now investigated this whole entire letter situation and gone into all the different ways that this letter was created, everything that went into it, and then everything that happened afterward. And so, like I said earlier, not a good day for the Bidens. It's no wonder that TikTok decided to ban this show, because we were getting dangerously uncomfortable to the truth, and they, of course, did not like that. And so we will continue to dig on these items. We will not back down from censoring our speech. Okay? And you don't back down either, because this is a fight. This is a fight, and we can't stop, won't stop. You know what I'm saying? It's a good old-fashioned honky-tonk throwdown. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. We are coming back with a lot more, including what's going on with George Santos. Donald Trump found liable. Is that really believable? And Tucker is taking to Twitter. And what's happening with Title 42. We're going to get to all that. Still a lot left to go. Thanks for being here, listening, watching, and supporting the Ike Wingate Show. Hey, don't forget, we've got some fantastic merch for you at nomorepronouns.com. Free and independent since 1776. Effet will do it live, and a whole lot more. Plus the Ike Nation coveted hoodies. They are available to purchase right now at nomorepronouns.com. You not only sport a fantastic message when you wear Ike Nation gear, but you're also supporting the mission of shining a light into the dark corners of our government, our culture, and our media. We've got stickers, shirts, hoodies, and more starting at $2.99 on up. So make it known that you're a critical thinker, that you're a free thinker while supporting our mission. Whether it's No More Pronouns, I Like Ike, or the classic Ike Nation hoodie, it's all there for you now. Shop www.nomorepronouns.com. Okay. 1 second here, just taking a break to collect myself. Yeah, they still haven't responded to the appeal. I don't think they will today. They do not want us putting this information out. All right, who's still on YouTube? It says there's 3 concurrent viewers. That can't be right. There's more than 3 people in the chat. It makes no sense. Holly is in the house. Holly's in the house. Angela's in the house. We still got a few people over on Rumble. Okay. I'm just going to keep going here. Nathan is in the house, still there. It looks like Rumble has at least stayed stable for a while. I say that, and then it'll crap out on us. All right. I guess everybody else got tired. Hey, thanks for checking out the super chat, Holly. To check that out. Does it not show me? I can't see who's on. I don't know. It doesn't actually show me who's watching. It says we have 3 concurrent viewers. I guess that might be right. It's Holly, Angela, and Nathan. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. Thank you, Holly. I can see that 7 people are watching. It does not show me who. So I can't actually tell who's on. All right, let's get through the rest of this stuff for you guys. All right, welcome back into the Ike Wingate Show. Big news day. Big news day. George Santos, congressman, new congressman out of New York, and he was detained today as part of a federal indictment. He was released. He says he wasn't arrested. He voluntarily turned himself in, but was released on a $500,000 bond today. The indictment was 13 different counts, 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives. The allegations are that he unlawfully applied for unemployment benefits during COVID while he had a job. He's got a lot of lies in his past as well about his education and his resume, where he's worked, where he hasn't. The guy is seemingly a sleazeball, but he says he's not leaving. In fact, he's going back to Washington to vote on a bill tomorrow. And so he says he will prove himself innocent. If you watched him walk out of the courthouse, it was a circus. And it's just one of those guys that you see and you just kind of go, I don't really trust this dude. Obviously, due process needs to happen. Innocent until proven guilty. So that is what's next for George Santos. But I don't think he's doing the Republican Party any favors by hanging around. You know what I'm saying? So the indictment was returned under seal by a federal grand jury. Of course, was unsealed today. And that pretty much gives you what you need to know. But he received, allegedly, $24K in unemployment insurance benefits from the New York State Department of Labor while he already had a job for $120,000 a year at a Florida investment firm, and got these benefits while he was running for Congress. So George Santos has some hard days ahead of him to prove his innocence. Now, let's talk about the Donald Trump case. He was declared to be guilty of sexual battery and defamation, but not guilty of rape in the case with E. Jean Carroll from 27 years ago. And you go, well, you know, we talked about this yesterday. It's like, what about the statute of limitations? Well, we'll get to that because that's not adding up. But let's first talk about what I mentioned yesterday. And after having a day to think through this and hear the perspective from some legal analysts, at the time I said it's kind of weird that they would have said that he's not guilty of rape, yet he's guilty of sexual battery. So they obviously didn't believe her story, but yet threw in this sexual battery charge or award, I should say. It was all a civil case. But the other one is defamation. He says that he didn't do it. The actual jury says he didn't rape her, right? But yet he is charged for defamation. How are you charged for defamation on something that you didn't do? Because the jury actually said he didn't rape her. Otherwise, they would have awarded damages for that. They said there was sexual battery. So the defamation charge doesn't make sense. And then somehow they go, well, he didn't rape her, but he did sexually, there was sexual battery, because he grabbed her by the, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. It's contradictory. But let's look further into this situation because this gives credibility to the argument that they just continue to try to go after Donald Trump for whatever they possibly can. And with this particular case, the statute of limitations was up. The statute of limitations to be able to bring this charge or this accusation was over. And they changed the law. They changed the law. That's what happened. And one has to ask the question, now, why would they do that? Why would they change the law? Well, let's get into that. The statute of limitations on sexual assault eliminated for 1 year in New York following the passage of the Adult Survivors Act. With Governor Hochul's signing yesterday, this is back in May of 2022, May 25th. With Governor Hochul's signing today of the Adult Survivors Act, the ASA as it's called, New York has taken a monumental step toward providing an avenue for victims of sexual abuse to seek legal recourse against their perpetrators and employers that were previously time-barred due to statute of limitations and or notice of claims requirements. Okay? So they changed the law, and then they gave anybody a year to bring cases. Okay, you following me? So her lawyer says they filed their lawsuit at midnight on opening day of the 1-year time frame. This morning, she actually admitted that they were part of the law being passed. So this points to specifics on the fact that in New York City, they changed a law so they could specifically go after Donald Trump. Here's E. Jean Carroll and her attorney on CNN earlier today.
And it's the fact that New York passed this law.
Yeah.
The Adult Survivors Act. They passed it just a few years ago. Were it not for that law, you never would have been able to bring this case. And I just think it speaks to the importance for a lot of other survivors.
Exactly. I would never have this window, this year of having the ability to bring a lawsuit for rape. Robbie can explain it better.
Well, EJ actually helped to get that law passed. It passed last year. We filed, it was Thanksgiving Day, was the first day you could sue. We filed just after midnight on Thanksgiving. And
Can I end on something that I think is
so
really
that was the clip. Her attorney just says, yeah, she was part of passing that law. So are you seeing what we're seeing here? There was a concerted effort to change a law so they could go after Donald Trump. That's certainly what it appears to be. And did you know that the person funding her actual legal bill was a Democrat activist billionaire? That's who was funding E. Jean Carroll's legal fight. The name escapes me. Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn social media platform co-founder. Reid Hoffman is the one who funded E. Jean Carroll's prosecution alleging former President Donald Trump raped her. Through a nonprofit group, the major Democratic donor backs, right, is how she was paid. American Future Republic, a nonprofit group primarily backed by Hoffman, her lawyers disclosed last month. So you hear the phrase witch hunt. They changed the law. A billionaire who had nothing to do with the case funded the legal fight, and then a jury still didn't find him guilty of rape. They contradicted themselves by saying no, yet yes, and then fined him or awarded payment for defamation. There's never any cut and dry, black and white situations that implicate Donald Trump. You see what I'm saying? Like, people that hate Donald Trump are pointing to this going, finally, they got him, or with the Alvin Bragg case, finally, they got him. But no, they didn't. They literally said that he didn't do it. The jury did. But they literally used people that had come in contact with Donald Trump before as witnesses. Some lady on a plane. Nobody saw this incident happen. There were no witnesses. They used all of this circumstantial evidence around Donald Trump's character to say that this happened with her. They changed the law to be able to bring the case. A billionaire enemy of Donald Trump funded it. It really has the markings of a witch hunt, if you ask me. All right, well, last night, Tucker Carlson announced on Twitter that he is back. And where can you find him?
Twitter people say the news is full of lies. But most of the time, that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
All right, TuckerCarlson.com is how he tags the video. Text Tucker to 44055 is what it says at the end there. Okay, so Elon Musk was quick to put out a tweet and tag this video and says, on this platform, unlike the one-way street of broadcast, people are able to interact, critique, and refute whatever is said. And of course, anything misleading will get community notes. I also want to be clear that we have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever. Tucker is subject to the same rules and rewards of all content creators. Rewards means subscriptions and advertising revenue share, which is coming soon, which is a function of how many people subscribe and the advertising views associated with the content. I hope that many others, particularly from the left, choose to be content creators on this platform. So you read into it that basically Elon Musk wants, Fox News to know that there's no contract here. There's no breach. He doesn't want to be dragged into a legal battle, so I understand that. He's also wanting to set the tone that, this is something anybody can do that is a content creator. That's something we'll do once the video part is created. And he also wants to make sure that people from the left are on there as well. So there we go. Pretty interesting. I have to say I'm a little bit surprised that this is the direction they're going, but I'm pleasantly surprised at that. You wonder if the rapport that they struck up just days before Tucker was ousted when they did a one-on-one interview on Fox News caused them to strike up the rapport that would allow them to enter into this conversation. Nothing is by accident. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe we'll hear the story one day. I wish Tucker success. And if he is looking for a someone else on his channel, you know you can call me anytime, Tucker Carlson. Looking forward to that content. And just by way of announcement, we have just been cleared on our appeal on TikTok, so we will be back on that platform soon for anybody who wonders. Want to let you know about this tweet that was sent out earlier. This is regarding the Title 42, the pouring over of illegal immigrants into our country, the absolute most ridiculous thing ever. Absolutely horrible. The fact that so many people are pouring into our country that have not been vetted. We don't know who they are. It's a complete security risk. I think we're going to see the negative effects, from this in more ways than one. Obviously, you've got drugs, you've got sickness, you've got people coming over that won't be paying taxes. That's one thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if a terrorist attack results from some of the folks that are pouring over the border. I know that there's good people that are coming, but just by way of illegally crossing, they are criminals, and they need to go through the proper channels to come into this country. That's just the way it is for ensuring proper immigration occurs. Most other countries do the same thing. Why aren't we? But it's creating a safety hazard. Michael Yon tweeted out earlier today, a guy who knows a lot about security. He says that due to the Border Patrol announcement, which was starting this morning in the Rio Grande Valley McAllen station, all Border Patrol details are canceled. 90% of each shift must report to the staging area in McAllen, which leaves only 5 agents on each shift to patrol 50 miles of border, 50 miles of river covered by 5 agents. They might as well raise the white flag. It's done. Everyone will get away. Aliens will come pouring over the border. I know you will be out there, so be careful, go armed, and don't go alone. There will be literally no one out there to help you, and the cartels will take full advantage. Specifically, Michael Yon is warning SpaceX. SpaceX has their headquarters there in this particular area, the Rio Grande Valley, and so he actually tweeted a picture of it showcasing the Rio Grande Valley and exactly where the SpaceX location is, the most southeastern tip of Texas. And so he is warning those there that are part of that organization, they are left to their own devices. Now, of course, some know-it-all jackass tweeted, I believe SpaceX has its own security and probably handshake deals with, powerful people down there. I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, because you're so smart, mild-mannered maniac, which is their username. Their username is 80s Geek, but whatever their handle is, mild-mannered maniac. Anyway, Michael Yon responds and says, that's an assumption and not a good one. As a war correspondent who has seen tons of heavily guarded places hit while I was there, I'd advise SpaceX to up their game. They're essentially undefended right now. So, there you go. To those asking why governors don't do anything, as Abbott stated, this is federal jurisdiction and feds are actively working against all local efforts. That's what one person tweeted, and then Michael Yon responded, wrong. The governors can do things besides photo ops like Greg Abbott does. Supreme Court 3 times has affirmed states' ability to close borders due to health issues. Abbott is in on the fix, according to Michael Yon. Don't look at the theater with the Texas NG for photo ops. Look at what he actually did. Wow, that's a pretty serious allegation there. Basically saying that Greg Abbott could do something about it if he really wanted to legally. Okay, so We continue to see a horrible situation on the border. Title 42 is ending soon, which is going to cause even more people to come over once they realize that actually Title 42 ending is good for you if you want to illegally cross into our country. The Biden administration is set to dramatically limit asylum, though. They're sort of doing a tweak on this now in the wake of the expiration of Title 42, rolling out a new rule today that mirrors a Trump-era policy requiring migrants to first seek and be denied asylum in another country before trying to get into the U.S. So basically, they go to another country and seek asylum, and once they're told no, then we'll let them in without questions. The rule comes as Title 42, which allows for the rapid expulsion of migrants without letting them seek asylum, will expire tomorrow, Thursday, May 11th. And so just another BS workaround there. This is so negligent. This is such gross incompetence. I don't know how any logical person can look at it and say there has to be an ulterior motive. There has to be an agenda here for having open borders and letting so many people pour into our country. This is stupidity. This is negligence. This is gross negligence, incompetence. I'm struggling to come up with the adjectives to properly describe the bass-ackwards way that this is all going. And it's not going to be good for us. Joe Biden is probably going to be long gone before the true implications really reveal themselves as to how bad this actually is. But what does he care? He'll be eating ice cream or he won't be around anymore. So our country's in a bad spot. We drastically, desperately need leadership change soon. I don't know even how we can continue in this direction for another 2 years. It's gone so poorly in the previous 2 years. But look, as I've said before, my hope is not in government officials. My hope is not in politicians. And that's why I get annoyed at this stuff. I want to call out deception. I want to call out lies, corruption. And those things give me a righteous anger, if you will. But at the end of the day, I am not stressing about where it all ends up because I have faith in God, faith in Jesus Christ, faith in his plan, that it will all work out the way that he has told us it will. Unfortunately, we may have to live through the really terrible times of the United States not being in a position of power to protect places like Israel and others. And that has to come from a disintegration of our country. And that is what we're seeing. Did it get real for you there? Yeah, maybe too much, but that's what I believe. And regardless of knowing that that's a very likely possibility that the United States becomes irrelevant on the world stage in the very end times, you still want to fight like crazy to prevent it, because that is what being a good steward is. That's what being a responsible follower is. Because until we know for sure, we fight and pray like crazy. And that's what you should do. That's what I'm going to do. Thank you so much for checking out the show today. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Keep looking out for one another. And until next time, USA.
Rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It's how we get the word out amidst the chaos. Thanks